The tank was supposed to be the pride of the modern battlefield, built with cutting-edge technology, powerful armor, and an engine that could move mountains. But when the day came to test it, something went terribly wrong. The machine roared, rattled, and then died in the middle of the field, leaving a group of highly trained engineers scratching their heads. They checked every bolt, every wire, and every system. Days turned into weeks, but the tank refused to move. Frustration grew, pressure mounted, and whispers began to spread. If the army couldn't fix its most advanced weapon, what did that say about its future? The general in charge was furious, yet behind his anger was a deep sense of worry. Millions had been invested, reputations were at stake, and soldiers on the ground were waiting for a machine that simply didn't work. He called in experts from across the country, men and women with degrees, awards, and endless resumes, but each one walked away defeated, admitting the same painful truth. The problem was beyond them. It wasn't just a broken part, it was a puzzle no one seemed able to solve. Then, in a moment of desperation, the general remembered someone. Not a scientist, not a decorated professor, but a quiet army veteran who had once served under him. This man wasn't known for fancy titles, but for his hands-on genius, someone who could listen to the hum of an engine and tell you exactly where it was hurting. He had retired years ago, choosing a simple life far from the noise of the military. Yet the general knew there was no one else who could face this impossible challenge. So the call was made. The veteran was summoned back, not with promises, but with a plea. The Army's strongest machine was helpless, and only he might breathe life into it again. When the old soldier stepped onto the testing ground, everyone went silent. Would his touch be enough to succeed where so many had failed? Or would even his genius prove powerless against this modern beast? The answer was still waiting to be revealed. The veteran's arrival felt almost unreal to the younger soldiers who had only heard his name in stories. He wasn't a man of many words, and he didn't wear his past on his shoulders like medals. Instead, he carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind that made people step aside without being asked. The general greeted him with a firm handshake, hiding the desperation in his eyes. Engineers and technicians stood nearby, curious yet doubtful. To them, this man was from another time, a soldier who belonged to an older generation of machines. What could he possibly know about a tank designed with modern computers, sensors, and technology far beyond the engines of the past? But there was something about the way the veteran approached the silent giant. He didn't rush, didn't bark orders, and didn't seem intimidated. He simply walked around the tank, running his hand gently across the cold metal as though he was listening to it. To the engineers, it looked almost strange, like he was talking to the machine without saying a word. He leaned close to the engine compartment, closed his eyes for a moment, and then stood back, deep in thought. The younger mechanics exchanged puzzled glances. They had tried everything, replacing parts, running diagnostics, even tearing the engine down piece by piece. Nothing had worked. Yet this veteran hadn't touched a tool, and already it seemed like he understood something they didn't. The general, standing with his arms folded, watched carefully. He had seen this man turn disasters into victories before, but this tank was unlike anything either of them had faced. As the sun set over the testing field, the veteran finally spoke. His words were calm but carried weight, and everyone leaned in to hear. Whatever he had discovered, it was clear the road ahead was going to be far more complicated than anyone expected. The veteran's voice was steady as he asked a few simple questions, questions that seemed almost too basic for such a complicated machine. When did it first fail? What sound did it make before shutting down? Did the exhaust change color? The engineers were surprised. They had mountains of data, charts and computer logs, but none of them had paid attention to those small, human details. One of the younger soldiers admitted that the tank had given a strange metallic knock, just before it stalled, but no one thought it mattered. The veteran nodded slowly, as if the machine had just whispered a secret only he could understand. He crouched by the engine hatch, running his fingers along the bolts, the casing, and even the scratches made by the tools of the frustrated mechanics. His eyes narrowed, not at the technology, but at the story hidden inside the wear and tear. To him, every mark was a clue. The engineers exchanged uneasy looks. This wasn't how they worked. They trusted diagnostics and digital readouts, not instincts. Yet something about the veteran's calm focus kept them silent. The general stood a few steps back, remembering the man he had once commanded. Years ago, this soldier had saved an entire convoy by fixing a crippled vehicle under enemy fire, using nothing but spare wires and a wrench. Back then, he had been called reckless by some, but the general knew it was more than luck. It was raw genius, a gift for machines that no school could ever teach. Now, watching him face the most advanced tank engine in the world, the general wondered if that same gift was strong enough to cut through layers of modern technology. The veteran finally rose to his feet, his expression unreadable. Everyone leaned forward, waiting for him to speak. But instead of an answer, he gave only a warning. This was not a simple breakdown, and fixing it might uncover a problem far bigger than anyone had imagined. The silence after his words was heavier than the sound of the stalled engine. The engineers looked at one another nervously, unsure of what the veteran truly meant. A problem bigger than a breakdown? What could that be? The general's jaw tightened. He had called this man because he trusted his instincts, but now even he felt the weight of unease. The veteran's calm eyes scanned the group, then returned to the tank, as if the machine itself was daring him to dig deeper. He finally asked for the lights to be dimmed and requested everyone step back. Slowly, he opened a small panel on the side of the engine bay, one that the engineers had checked countless times before. But unlike them, he didn't just look at the readings. He listened. The faint hum that followed sent a shiver down his spine. It wasn't the sound of a failing part. It was something else. Something that didn't belong in this machine at all. The veteran leaned in closer, almost pressing his ear against the metal. His hands brushed the wires, the sensors, the connectors, and then he froze. The expression on his face hardened, and for the first time since his arrival, he looked troubled. The general noticed it immediately. "What is it?" he demanded, his voice sharp. The veteran didn't answer right away. He took a step back, studying the tank as though seeing it for the first time. Whispers rippled through the engineers. They had all run tests. They had all torn this tank apart, yet none of them had seen what he was now hinting at. The tension grew thick as the veteran finally turned to the general, lowering his voice so only a few could hear. His words were enough to chill the air around them. This wasn't just a malfunction. There was something hidden within the machine, something that could change everything they thought they knew about the project. And as the soldiers and engineers leaned forward, waiting for him to explain, the veteran stopped short, leaving the truth hanging in unbearable silence. The silence stretched until the veteran finally spoke again, his voice low but firm. "This isn't just an engine failure. Someone tampered with it." The words cut through the air like a blade. The engineers stiffened, disbelief flashing across their faces. They had assumed the tank's flaws were the result of design flaws or a mechanical oversight, but sabotage? That possibility had never crossed their minds. The general's eyes narrowed, his posture stiffening as the weight of those words sank in. The veteran pointed to a cluster of wires tucked deep inside the compartment, ordinary at first glance, yet twisted in ways that didn't belong. He explained that the misalignment wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, clever enough to slip past even the most detailed inspections. The room seemed to grow colder as the implications settled. If the tank had been sabotaged, then someone inside the project or close enough to access it had been working against them. The general's face hardened. This wasn't just about fixing a machine, it was about uncovering a betrayal that could threaten the entire defense program. The engineers exchanged nervous whispers, some refusing to believe what they saw, others realizing how dangerous the truth might be. For the first time, they understood why the veteran had looked so troubled. The veteran stayed calm, but his tone carried urgency. This engine had been pushed harder. If it had been sent into the field like this, it wouldn't just fail, it would destroy itself. His words landed like thunder. The general clenched his fists, aware of the disaster that had nearly been unleashed under his command. But before anyone could ask more, the veteran added something even chilling. This wasn't the only system touched.